All right, so we are recording. So thank you for joining us today. I have Kaitlyn, our agency manager, with us, and then I am Beth Kaitlyn. We are with Aspire Insurance Group and Doggone Insurance. And we were going to do a brief overview of the insurance landscape as it pertains to rescues. And so a little bit about us. Aspire is a full service independent insurance agency, and Doggone Insurance is actually just a passion project where we took passion and career and put it together. And so it's a fun little niche that we have. And so Kaitlyn, I'm just going to have you share a little bit about you with everybody.
Yeah. So I'm Kaitlyn. I fell into insurance almost 6 years ago. I started just front desk working and then went into personal lines, then worked in commercial, and now I'm kind of overseeing a little bit of both. And then I work with all of our new business in the agency and just have a lot of fun.
Yeah, we do have fun. So first I wanted to share a little bit about the history of as it pertains to insurance with rescues. So this is an area that I have been really working in intensely since 2010. I've actually been in the industry for 22 years, but when I started my book of business, this was a real intentional area because my history was in rescue. And so over the last 13 years, I have seen a lot of twists and turns when it comes to the rescue insurance space. So there seems to be a very cyclical, like insurance is cyclical in general. Commercial insurance or business insurance is even more cyclical. And then rescue just takes it up probably 5 more notches. So what we seem to run into is that every few years there's a new program that comes out that has amazing coverages and is just a great program. And there's a real history of these programs being underpriced. And so they don't last for long because they're paying out more claims on the program than they're bringing in from a premium perspective. So this has been chronic over the last 13 years. And so the programs don't stay around for very long, which leaves us then scrambling to find new programs, new insurance companies, and it's just kind of always in that state. And I will tell you, if I didn't have the passion that I had, I probably would have thrown in the towel a while ago on this because it can be really disconcerting when you're running into trying to find programs all the time and a lack of coverages oftentimes that we need when we're in rescue. So that's just kind of the history. We've seen many of these programs come and go now. And then there's also been periods of space in between where we were left with just a really bare minimum ability to cover because the next program hadn't come out yet. So thankfully, currently, we do have one solid, great program. We do have other resources to write, but there is one program that has all of the coverages that I would like to see the rescues that are written with us have. So to kind of put insurance and rescue in perspective, I know that when we go into rescue, it's because we have a heart for animals. And so the insurance piece is just a completely annoying sideshow. It feels like sometimes you're flushing money down a toilet, but I thought I'd help put things into a little bit of perspective. First is that on just a regular homeowner's policy, 1/3 of liability claims on a homeowner's policy are animal related. And that's usually going to be like our family fur family. So our dogs that we have with us. And they're familiar to us. It's not going to be, the rescue world is different because we're taking animals coming from pretty stressful situations, oftentimes with who we work with going into the foster environment. And so you're dealing with an animal that you don't know in the probably most stressful time in their lives. So that obviously brings more risk. So 1/3 of liability claims on homeowners are animal related, and the average animal liability claim is paying out over $50,000 at a time right now. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a broader view that how sometimes the pricing of these programs needs to be appropriate for the risk that the insurance company is taking on And I would say, from having done this for so many years now, that I would really prefer a program to come in and be priced correctly and stay around for a long time, rather than having to go through the cycle of refinding another program, getting to know that program, moving everybody over to that program. It just is really disruptive, and really nobody wins in those situations. Currently what we're seeing is in the insurance industry as a whole, inflation has really hit the insurance industry. And we are seeing that in the rescue insurance sector, as with any other one, we're seeing that the markets, the availability of the companies we have to go to is narrowing. We're seeing premium increases by quite a bit, because companies have just struggled being as profitable as they need to be to make ends meet. And we're just seeing we're seeing more non-renewals, and we're finding that carriers are just really digging into the accounts that land on their desk. So we do have two programs that one of which is our preferred, and the other one is more price effective, of course, because the first one has all the bells and whistles that we'd like to see you have. So Kaitlyn, do you want to share with us a little bit about the coverages on our preferred program that we have that really stand out for rescues?
Yeah. So with like our preferred program that we work with, you know, our main point whenever we're talking with a rescue that we currently have or a prospective one is that the liability goes to the home of where the foster animal is. And so when that happens, is that if anything were to happen, there's going to be liability. The other carrier that we work with, it's a gray area. We don't know if there really is going to be a transfer or not. And then they also have coverage for their volunteers. So if you're doing an event or there's something happening, like if you have a location, your volunteers are going to be covered if a dog were to hurt somebody, along with any other type of risk that were to happen. They rate by foster homes instead of giving a general rate, even though it can be costly, because we are seeing that right now. And in the preferred program, I think, we're trying to see they're trying to be stable, but also it's hard too, because they're charging by foster home. Well, there could be a small foster based rescue and they have 30 foster homes. Well, that's going to be highly expensive for them. And so a lot of the times too is that they will go by active foster homes with however many dogs they have.
Mm-hmm.
And then also they really focus in on the coverages that are for animals versus just throwing in whatever type of liability coverage there may be for like a general liability policy.
Yeah. What are you finding about so you're not finding any some of the things we've run into with our non-preferred program is that they exclude dog bites?
Yes.
Which would be the whole purpose of having the policy, other than for events. But there are, in our non-preferred program, a lot of times you're seeing the bites are excluded, which is wild to me. So our preferred program does cover, like you said, dog bites. And then breed restrictions. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So our preferred currently has no breed restrictions. Of course that, they're in our other program we have, depending on which part of the program you go into, they're starting to have restrictions, and what they're bringing to the table is the basic dangerous dog breed is what they call it, even though that's not always the case. And so they're restricting breeds that you can take in, or they're saying you can take it in, but there's not going to be any coverage for it. And I will say, a lot of the rescues we work with, they are pit bull rescues or Rottweiler rescues, or, just a general rescue where, there isn't, just because they're that breed doesn't mean anything. So that's where it's like that kind of like the stigma of the name is what scares the carriers away. But our preferred, they're welcoming any breed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a lot more comfortable. Obviously if you're breed specific, but then also if you're a rescue that brings in any breed, you don't want to have to worry about like, oh, this dog's covered and this dog is not covered.
Right.
And in our not preferred program, most of the time we're seeing that the dog bites have not been covered under them. And so then what happens if they're not covered is the foster family actually ends
Yeah.
up being the one that's responsible because it's physical care, custody, and
Mhm.
control. And so that can bring up a whole different set of
Yeah.
problems, especially because unfortunately with homeowners insurance now, homeowners insurance has increasingly become more nervous about animal liability because it has such a big claim, like the 50,000 on per claim on average throughout the nation. A lot of these homeowners companies are starting to release either a lower amount of coverage for animal liability. Sometimes it's even 25,000, which is very small.
Mhm.
Or we have run into some homeowners insurance companies on their basic homeowners policy, not including animal liability as part of the policy. And so we've actually had an incident where there was a rescue that selected the non-preferred program, so it does not cover dog bites. And so then there was a bite in the foster home, and the foster family's homeowners insurance had an exclusion for animal liability on it because the agent didn't realize that the basic homeowners policy doesn't cover animal liability. They needed to add that back on. So it can really start to expose rescues a lot.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think
So
like educating the rescues like within, when I'm meeting with one, with whether it's a brand new rescue or one that they're trying to find coverage because there are rescues that they don't know where to go anymore. And then they come to us to Aspire because we have dog on and we work with many rescues and like, well, what do I need to do to protect us? And so, we're like, hey, like make sure that your foster homes are checking with their insurance, or if they don't know or they can't help them, like we are more than happy to take a look. Like we can help advocate and educate them. Like this is what's important to us is coverage at the end of the day. And we like to educate at the top of.
yeah, I would agree. One of the things we were talking about earlier is how, just the narrowing of the market. So when you're going out and you are marketing and looking for quotes on a new rescue, what are some of the things that you're running into right now?
Besides obviously like minimum premiums now, we didn't really have that before. I would say probably the start of last year, so probably 22 is where we started seeing the really hard, like, okay, this is a minimum premium, this is where you're going to be, but you have to fill out like 15-page applications, and they're gonna underwrite and look at every little inch of what we're insuring, which they should be. They should be looking at everything and to make sure that the risk is acceptable. But they're even modifying applications to almost get to a point where like the parameters aren't as I'm not gonna as easy it would be before hard market times.
Yeah,
And they're looking on social media, they're looking on websites to make sure that, the applicant is being true of what they're doing. Events, the carriers are really big in events right now. If there's more than XYZ events, or if there's an event like at like a brewery, they don't want it. And so like there's different types of things that just they will see and they're like, oh no, we saw they did this in 2019. We don't want that. And so it's getting harder to place those little things. And a lot of the times those are the biggest fundraisers for a rescue. And so the rescue has to choose between, do I have this event or do I have insurance?
right, right. And that's where for us, because we're independent, we have many different
Yeah.
companies, and we have for rescue, like we have the markets available. It just becomes hard because the companies get scared, which is where it's important for us to do a good job at maintaining good relationships with our
Yeah.
underwriters and the
Mhm.
insurance carriers, which we have done.
Right.
So it's nice that in those situations, when they're uncomfortable, we can come back and have a conversation with them
Mhm.
and explain to them, you know, what, why are you nervous, and kind of talk
Mhm.
them through it.
Yeah.
And so, but having a good understanding of how rescue works and how the companies work,
Mhm.
is important. Sometimes it's as simple as having a liability waiver at an
Right.
event or something like
Mhm.
that will get them comfortable enough to say
Yeah.
yes. But I'd say right now, you're right, like carriers are doing a lot more digging. I think part of that is there's not regulation on
Yep.
rescues in Minnesota, which I'm not touching that topic. Don't care where you stand. It just means that companies do a little bit more digging.
Yeah.
They're kind of looking for, like what you said, they're looking on
Yeah.
social, they're looking on the websites, they're really trying to get a good
Mhm.
picture of the operations.
Mhm.
Um, Let's see here. The one of the things that we had talked about a little earlier was that you're really seeing that the companies are looking a lot more for the agreements from a rescue.
Yeah.
One of like the hold harmless. And what are some
Mhm.
other documentation pieces that you're finding the companies are asking for more?
Yeah, so with the rescues that have like a little bit higher volume or especially like a startup rescue, they're looking for that hold harmless agreement. They're looking for their volunteer waivers. They're looking for their foster agreements. And then also like if they do adoptions, they want certain things in writing. And if there isn't one type of thing, then they want it changed. And did work on a rescue that they made them add in wording in order to write them. And it was as simple as that, where that they just had to have a meeting to change it. But like they are getting very picky of how the waivers are looking and what their agreements are saying. And so that's always something like have all of your paperwork and ducks in a row before you really start to go to market and
Yeah.
having that available.
What are some of the reasons that you are finding that we're getting declines on rescues?
Um, Most of the time, I would say it's either if there's a claims history. Sometimes we do get okay, even though if there's a claim, we do still always try it because there can be a possibility. But one thing that, that's the big thing that with some of the claims that we've had in the past of not ours, but people coming to us, um, we see the claim history of it and the carrier says, oh no, like, we can look at it, but then we go back and see why. And it's like, oh no, like there's been an incident with a dog before, so they haven't changed their policy. So they
Mhm.
need a resolution to that. And that rescue, they will not change their policy because of the dog deserves a second chance. And everybody's different on that topic. And so but the carriers, it depends on who you get. And then another thing is with the amount of people or the amount of homes that they do. Of course, they'll take any amount of premium of homes, but if there's an amount of homes and it's not sporadic, they don't like that. They want set active homes all the time and they don't want to be updating like monthly because there
Yeah.
are the people who are like, oh, can we just call you each month and tell you what we have? Um, and then like those larger events are
Yeah.
really really hard. And when you wouldn't think that that would be an issue when you're insuring a nonprofit. Like
Yeah.
this is how we make our money, but it's really interesting to see how things change over time.
Yeah, and, like, what things they become picky with. You can't
Yeah.
necessarily a lot of times the things that the companies become picky with are
Yeah.
the things that they had a bad experience with. Like, they
Yep.
had a bad claims experience, so now they're gonna start being really picky about
Hmm.
this one thing here.
Yeah. Yep.
Dogs with
Yeah.
pink clothes on their collar,
Right.
because
Exactly.
one time one bit something, it's just you
Yep.
can't really tell where it's gonna come out of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little update here from Aspire and Doggone Insurance about rescue and the landscape of things. I know it's not necessarily rainbows and butterflies. However, it's truthful and honest, and I feel like like the rescue community deserves to kind of hear a little bit of a deeper perspective of kind of what's going on and why. I would say, if anything, just be prepared to have insurance be part of your budget. Um, I I've been on the financial side of rescue before. I completely get it. Something, maybe it's just a little, maybe it's one extra fundraiser. It's worth it to be protected well. I wish there was more we could do on our end to control what the markets are doing. But the good thing is that we do have the markets cornered. We have very good markets, and we're highly engaged in always looking for other additional markets. That's part of the reason why we're independent, as we work for our clients. We do not work for the companies. We have a fiduciary responsibility to our clients. So we are in your corner. If you have any further questions about what we have shared today, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're always here to help.